to order at 7:05 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance as you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence or a moment of silent prayer as your conscience finds appropriate. Thank you. Please be seated. Council members, you have an agenda in front of you. Are any changes required to the agenda?
No changes in my regard.
Nothing for me either.
Councilmember Lingua?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I do have a question that this meeting is advertised in the town crier is taking place tomorrow, July 7th. Has there been adequate notice provided to town residents so that they know that the meeting is tonight?
I believe that there's been broadcast over all of the social media. I believe there's been broadcast over the cable channel. And of course, the primary notice that is required by law is posting outside of town hall. I don't know whether that occurred or not. It's sort of unusual in these times to have that happen. But I believe that every effort was made to inform the public in as many ways as we could.
So in other words, we're not sure.
Well, how do you ever know if you've communicated with the public?
How do I know if I've communicated with the public? I'm usually aware if I've communicated with the public. I'm just, asking, has there been an effort made through social media? Is there any way that we can verify that?
I verified it by monitoring the social media channels, and I saw broadcasts go out on all of those that the meeting was this evening.
Okay, so you know that it went out that way?
Yes.
Okay, so it's more than just believing, it's you do know that it went out that way.
Ms. Barnes is nodding her head. Do you care to speak, Ms. Barnes?
Yes, sir. I confirmed this morning that it's also on the cable channel and it went out on social media. Our practice is to advertise every meeting on social media as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. So hearing no requests for changes, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by council members Foe and Henry. Is that correct?
I believe so.
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any discussion or public comment on the agenda? Council discussion or public comment?
None. From me.
Okay. Let me do a roll call vote to see, I'll call the question. Councilmember Dixon is not present. Is that correct?
She just joined, sir.
There she is. See her. Why don't we loop back to Councilmember Dixon at the end? Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Henry?
Aye.
Is Councilmember Richardson present? Hear nothing. Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon, is your audio functional? Councilmember Dixon, can you raise your hand through the Zoom. Looks like the audio is coming online. Councilmember Dixon?
Hi, I'm here. Apologies.
No problem. The agenda was, motion was made to approve as presented, and we're all the way through voting except for you.
Yay. With, I'm assuming, no changes.
Yes, that's correct. No changes were made.
Yay.
Okay, I abstain. The motion passes 5-0-1. If I'm counting correctly. Yes, that's correct. Okay. That brings us to the correspondence summary. Are there any items of correspondence that require council attention? Or that council wants to bring up for discussion? Hearing nothing, I will move on to the mayor's report. As I did at the work session, I'm only going to discuss 2 items of business in the mayor's report. Maybe I'll think of a few others as I speak. The first item is the issue with concerns in the community and concerns around the country about police violence. We had a very long and interesting discussion about that on the 23rd. And the video of that meeting is available on YouTube for anyone who is interested in watching the meeting and hearing what happened during the discussion. I'm available to discuss it with any members of the public who are interested. My contact information is available on the town's website, or you can call the town to get my phone number if you need to. The sort of summary of that meeting is that that there are many issues with how the police work, that they are asked to do many different things during the course of the day, and that that sometimes they have to make split-second decisions in very difficult situations. We reviewed the policies, and particularly the policy on the use of force, and I don't believe that there were any specific issues that anyone brought up with the policy as presented. It was a newly revised policy, and so I think that perhaps not everyone had had a chance to go over it with a fine-tooth comb. I suspect that there will be further discussions of the police over the next several months, and so please watch the video, review the policies that are available on the town's website. I think that the police are showing very good transparency and are very committed to the health and happiness of the community. And I hope that we can work through any additional monitoring or slight policy tweaks that need to happen in order to have the community feel comfortable with our police department. The second item, as usual in my reports recently, is the COVID-19 coronavirus situation. And I was pleased last week to report that cases around the state, in the county, and even in our own zip code are stable and perhaps slightly declining. And this is very good news. They're not yet down at 0, which is where I think we all want to see them. But the fact that they are stable and much lower than they were is very good. And I simply must encourage everyone to continue social distancing, to continue mask wearing, to continue washing your hands. And should you be contacted by a contact tracing staff from the state of Maryland, please work with them to provide information about who you have contacted. I had a power fluctuation. Can each of the council members at least speak up and say that you're still online? Councilmember Foe, are you online?
I am.
Dixon, are you still online?
I can hear you. I'm not sure if I'm online, like video, but I can hear you.
Okay. Councilmember Lingua, are you online?
Yes.
Councilmember Henry?
Roger Dodger, I'm here.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Richardson is present or not yet present? I presume that's not present. Councilmember Mayers, you're still present?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Sorry about that. So continue wearing the masks, washing your hands, respond to contact tracers, and maintain distance from people who are not part of your household. And hopefully we will not see the sort of rebound that many other states have seen. I was looking at some very distressing curves this evening of Louisiana, of Hawaii, and of our own neighbor Delaware, where all of them have rebounded to the original height of their peak as they move too quickly to open up. And I think that we need to open up safely and slowly in order to move ahead. And the last thing that I will do, and this is for all the town staff, but the finance staff in particular, is to wish everyone a happy new fiscal year. And thank you all for finishing out the fiscal year. I know we still have some receipts, et cetera, to come in, so it's not done yet, but we are under the new budget, and I'm very pleased that we're there. Thank you. That concludes the mayor's report. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I will move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the community, and the staff team. I'll be relatively brief this evening. I want to share two main things. One, the staff team met back in February to talk about initiatives east of the river. So essentially in the multifamily housing areas where wards 4, 5, and 6 kind of converge. And about how do we as a town make the vision and commitment statements that the mayor and council adopted real? And how do we plan to carry out visible and impactful projects and programs in that area? The first proposed step will be outreach to the council members in that area. So Councilmember Henry, Councilmember Richardson, and Councilmember Mayers to get their feedback of what they would like to see in their wards in that area. And then the staff team plans on working with residents and developing a plan to make improvements there. We would then like to expand on that and have similar meetings with the elected officials and the community probably in the spring for the rest of the town. But we're thinking this early this fall, having the initial meetings, even if they have to be virtual. We don't know that yet. But we want to move from the ideal that's captured, or ideals that are captured in the vision and commitment statements the council has made to in reality, what types of improvements we can make in that area of town. So the staff team will be reaching out to those 3 council members within the next 2 weeks to schedule a time that we can listen to what it is that they would like to see in that area. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the 4th of July, it was extremely busy from a police standpoint. There were many illegal fireworks. And Councilmember Lingua and I spoke on Saturday evening and then again yesterday. And I wanted to take a minute to publicly thank him for his insight and his questions. I had considerable conversations with Chief Morris, and moving forward, we will evaluate holidays, special days, events in that to ensure that we are anticipating activity. So we can have staff ready for that type of influx. I think it was unprecedented, the amount of fireworks, illegal fireworks that were happening around town. We need to anticipate that. And I appreciate the conversation with Councilmember Lingua and with the chief that I had both Saturday night, Sunday, and then again today. I think we are better positioned moving forward. Those are the two things I have, Mr. Mayor, and we have Mr. Gentry Jones for the finance report when ready.
Please proceed to Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Subject to audit, the monthly finance report, I'll be covering the June revenue and expenditures as well as the year to date. We have concluded fiscal year 20, so I'll be able to report the revenue that we've had for the year as well as the expenditures. So for FY20 for June, our revenue came in at $261,128. Our expenditures, $592,438, with a deficit of $331,310. Now for year to date, for FY20, we have came in at 7.75 for revenue, and our expenditures 6.18, leaving us with a surplus amount of roughly 1.5 million. A thing to note about such is that we do anticipate having more expenditures as well as revenue coming down for the year. For our revenue, when we first initially presented the budget, we had adjusted our projections. We wanted our revenue to be, we wanted to be more conservative with our revenue, as we were kind of uncertain as if we were going to receive all of which we had budgeted. So we had adjusted our revenue to just 7.15. So bringing in the 7.76 million in revenue, we've exceeded that. So we are happy to report that our revenue is higher than what we had projected when we presented the budget book not too long ago. For our expenditures, we had also made an adjustment there where we projected that we would spend roughly 6.42 million. But we did a little bit better than that, with our expenditures falling to 6.18. Some revenue that we do expect to see in the next few months is the speed camera revenue. We're always 2 months behind for that, so we won't receive all of that revenue until roughly August. Another note for our expenditures is that along with that revenue, we do plan to get additional speed camera expenditure as well. So the total figure for expenditures will go up, and our revenue we do plan for our revenue to go up as well. And then the last part that I'd like to mention about the revenue is we do anticipate about $80,000 to $100,000 in revenue to come down as well, due to some unpaid tangibles that we've yet to receive. So eventually that number will come down as well for our total revenue. And that concludes the monthly finance report.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there council questions or comments on either the finance or the town manager's report? Any public comments?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, please speak.
Hi.
Oh,
speak.
yes. Okay. No, I was disconnected earlier. I just wanted to make sure I was here. Good evening, Mayor and Council, Mrs. Henry of Ward 4.
Mhm.
I just have, some comments to make this evening, if you allow me to.
Okay, Mrs. Henry?
Yeah.
Does this concern the town manager's report or the finance report? There's a section for public comments later on if you.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I'll chime back in at that time when you announce it, because I did miss it earlier, as I stated. I'll
Okay,
chime
well,
back in.
we
Okay.
have the fire department, council committee, and board reports, and then public comments. So I will.
Okay,
make
great.
sure you have a
Thank
chance
you.
at that time.
All right,
Awesome.
thanks.
Are there comments and questions on either the finance or the town manager's report at this time, or public comments? Would
I
someone
just
like
want
to?
to comment real quick, Mr. Mayor, and that is regarding what the TM had mentioned regarding the mission focus on the corridor for development. If I can get Councilmember Mayers and Councilmember Richardson, so that we can coordinate a telecom and we can discuss what areas of development we want to see for our jurisdiction, the 4, 5, and 6 wards going forward. Just want to point that out to the council members that are here. 6 especially. I know 4, 5 is not here, but I will try to reach out to her going forward. So, TM, I heard you, and we're going to make some efforts in trying to get some ideas going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the finance report? If there are no other questions or comments.
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve the finance report subject to audit.
Seconded.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua and seconded by Member Foe. Is there any discussion of the motion? Are there any public comments on the motion to approve the finance report? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
Mayor, I abstain.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Richardson is here or not here? Hearing nothing, I'll assume not here. Councilmember Mayers. Councilmember Mayers, are you here?
Yes, I'm back. We had dropped out, but I'm back online.
Okay. Do you approve of the motion to approve of the finance report subject to audit?
Yes.
Okay, I abstain also. The motion passes 4-0-2. The next item on the agenda is the fire department report. I did not receive a fire department report. Did staff receive one?
No, sir.
Okay, then let's move on to council committee and ward reports, starting with Councilmember Dixon, Ward 1.
Ms. Mayor, it's not really a report. It's more so just to discuss that I've received inquiries from constituents regarding the police policy. And as you all are aware, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. I've gotten through about 3/4 of the meeting online. But I just want to be clear. I know that I've also spoken to some of you already about it. But as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, I hope that we can have a discussion that will allow us to look at the policy and ensure that it's robust and covering as much as we may need it to cover, so that residents feel comfortable that our town has a police policy that makes them feel comfortable, I guess, or secure, or some of the statements that I received. Other than that, I don't have anything else other than hoping that we continue to see our numbers remain low for COVID, and that everyone continues to practice social distancing.
Thank you, Council Member. And of course, we can continue to discuss police departments in appropriate ways. So thank you for your comments. Council Member Foe, Ward 2.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to encourage people from our town and from other towns to take a stop by our new food forest in Ward 2. I want to take an opportunity to say thank you to staff for putting this together very last minute. I am excited about the opportunity to be a part of bringing people together in our community to garden, but more importantly, to assist with food insecurity in our town. It is at the site of the former Boys and Girls Club, and this whole dialogue was started by Councilmember Lingua, who wanted to get this space activated, so I appreciate that. Stop by, check it out, and reach out to me or your council member, if you please, to talk about how we can improve upon this in future growing seasons. With that, I yield my time.
Thank you, Council Member. There are no questions. Move on to Council Member Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Tomorrow evening, CCAR CDC will have its board meeting. It'll be holding it via Zoom. It starts at 5:30. Some of the things that will be up for discussion is the fund development, the capital campaign tile program, which will help go towards the Sarvis Cafe project. As well, there will be a discussion of other projects and programs, including the Grow Green program, which is looking to plant 300 trees this upcoming fall. There's also a discussion of a notice of review by Maryland COVID-19 Fund of the amount of $10,000. The GoFundMe Greater Riverdale Cares.com fund has exceeded its goal, which is good news, of $23,000. It's much over that. There's now discussions with University Park, College Park, and Hyattsville residents about the expansion of the restaurant meal program. There's also produce distribution, approximately 300 boxes at St. Bernard's each Tuesday. There is, as I mentioned before, the COVID-19, 2020 COVID-19 response, the Care First grant submission and grant relief program on behalf of partners. They'll be submitting a grant of $50,000. Regarding Kaiser Permanente's place-based initiative, CCAR Kaiser Permanente School Work Group, there's been discussions on that, and that'll be discussed more in detail tomorrow night. Also about Maryland nonprofits, a formal structure for a coalition of community leaders, as well as capacity building. Regarding the Sarvis Empowerment Cafe, a bond application is submitted per an award letter, and they're looking at an estimated completion, keep that in mind, of August 2020. Currently right now, Comcast telephone and low voltage work is underway, as well with the University of Maryland School of Architecture and NDC partners. A Sarvis mobile pop-up market is being discussed. The Edmonston Road Rain Garden is under there was a administrative review meeting on July 2nd, and what is being worked out is the 3-party MOU with the county, Park and Planning, specifically with county DPWT, Park and Planning, and CCAR. With SHA. Pardon me. That was right. And also there's work with State Highway Administration to require some follow-up regarding Kenilworth Avenue. As well, CCAR CDC has been working with the town of Riverdale Park on the renewal of the Sustainable Community Designation. This is more dealing with the town's designation, and which the town is including its contributions towards CCAR and how that has helped CCAR with plans that they have done, such as the Edmonston Road Rain Garden, previous tree planting programs, and the like. The one downside right now is that the ESOL and computer basics classes are on hold due to lack of funding. On another brighter note, they have summer volunteers in, Ayman Javed from Liberty's Promise CBT database entries. And there are also new staff hires. Bronte Nevins is a development specialist. Imari Alvarez is a business development specialist. And Alejandra Perez Velasquez is the Chesapeake Bay Trust social media outreach person. And helping out as a consultant is Dayanara Padilla, who will be a assistant program manager. In terms of the office, the landscape there is in terms of social distancing. They also have masks required. They're also doing temperature readings. They are filling out affidavits. And it is a combination of remote and office operations. And with that, I will conclude my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Sounds like CCAR has been extraordinarily busy lately, and I'll be interested to hear what comes out of the board meeting tomorrow evening.
Yes,
Are there
they
any other questions for Councilman Lingua? If not, move on to Councilman Henry, Ward 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. As always, I want to give a shout out to the first responders, the, fine police officers in our town, and the dispatchers that continue to take calls on a professional basis and dispatch accurately and concurrently. So I want to thank them first and foremost. I want to thank also as well to, Bates as well too, who's been doing a phenomenal job in our community, receiving and picking up our trash and just doing a phenomenal job in getting our area clean, because those guys are on the front line as well too. So I want to thank them. And I want to thank the grocery, folks that are out there, providing us and coming to work every day and putting their lives on the line for us. So I thank all these folks. These are our first line responders. Needless to say, of course, our hospitals and our doctors and nurses and, those practitioners, surgeries staff as well too. I thank them for their outstanding services in which we get and we can easily take for so granted. So lots of things that are going on in our town. I still want to see that our town begin to open back up and return to some type of normalcy. 50% of our staffing. I'd like to hear more what's happening in that direction as far as, being in a prepared mode going forward, how we will be moving forward in this pandemic episode, if you will. So that's of interest to me. I don't see us, continuously being, excuse me, in the same limelight of a virtual setting, going forward for the rest of our lives. I want to see us return to some type of normalcy. And what are we doing in those aspects? red teams, blue teams. Like I said earlier before, I understand that this is a pandemic. We're not out of the woods, but we can certainly, stay within the woods and still have contact with human socialization and provide services for our community. And, concerns of people and concerns of my constituents, they're paying, they're paying that dollar value, and they want to see that they're getting that dollar value returned to them. And, they understand that human life is definitely important, but they want to know that their dollar value is also, important, so they're getting a return investment for their investment as stakeholders in the town. So I want to see us move forward in a very cautious mode. We know that we're currently in phase 2 of this pandemic, and so we're making progress into opening up our town, opening up our counties, and opening up our state. And I want to see us progress in that manner. I want to know that employees are there serving our town and not remotely not being able to reach out and see our folks as they come in for services. I want to be able to see our folks come in and know there's someone there protectively within the services of our town. So I know it's going to cost some investment, but I think that's where we ought to be heading in this direction, as we are at somewhat of a stalemate, and we don't know the perfect direction to go in, but we have to have some direction to go in to say this is how we're providing services, because where money is passed, no favor is asked, and folks want to see that they're being rendered for their services, and that's just the bottom line. I think that's with everyone. And so I don't mean to be too rude or abrupt here, but I think that's the reality where, when you're paying for services, you want to see that services are being, portrayed, relayed, conveyed. And so I'd like to see the town manager project a plan that for this future, for what we're seeing right now, we don't know how much longer we're going to be in this. We're seeing spikes throughout the states, different states, Florida, in Texas, we're seeing these spikes just increase because of beaches in New Jersey. We're seeing these spikes. We know what we have to do today, right? Social distancing, we know masks is definitely something that we have to be living with in our society for some time. So let's not be shy about our reality, but be forthcoming and be brave of the dangers in which we face and move forward. Lots of times, when you think people are really brave, they're not. And who you expect to be really brave are not, and people who you expect not to be brave are brave. And so we have to count on each other and understand that our circumstances are different going forward, brave or not brave. We all have to come together in this circumstantial pandemic in which we face. And I want to see us come out of this. I don't want to see us just, getting to a shell and not rise up from this. We have to rise up from this. And I want to know what the TM is doing to rise up from this. And that's been my speech going into this. Mr. Mayor, I thank you for your stance in which you've made going forward, but I want to see more resolutionary stands coming from the TM to show us the way ahead forward. And if it's not his position, and if it's our position, then I'm saying, we need to start designing a protectional barrier for our town, for our stakeholders who are coming to the town to get services to be rendered. Mr. Mayor, I thank you so much for allowing me the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Just to sort of speak to your last comment, I know that the town manager has engaged architects for designing a shield that will go up in the town hall lobby. I'm not sure what the status of that is. Would you care to comment on that, Mr. Listician?
We're waiting for the design to be complete, and as soon as it is, we'll bring it to the council for approval.
Okay, thank you. So change is on its way, Councilman. But I appreciate your enthusiasm for that topic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So that brings us to, has Councilmember Richardson arrived? I don't believe so. Looking down the list, doesn't look like it. Councilmember Mayers?
Good
Have a
evening,
report?
Mayor and Council. I don't have any water reports today.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that brings us to public comments on non-agenda items and consent agenda items. I know that Mrs. Henry is interested in speaking. Would you like to speak now, Mrs. Henry?
Hello? Yes. Hello?
Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm gonna try to be really brief here. My concerns are merely for the record, and I will leave it up to the discretion of CM Henry if he wants to add on or take for action. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Before I begin, I do want to thank Council Member Lingua for asking the question about the meeting notification. Because if I was not married to a council member, I would not have known myself. And not everyone has a computer or is connected to social media like myself. I'm not, or have cable. So I just want to point that out, that it would be nice if more effort is, out there or put towards notification. That is very important. Well, I digress. And it also segue me into why I am speaking tonight. I would like to set the pretext of my comments by stating, as a retiree having served 30 years in local county government under a county manager structure, I am quite familiar with the full gamut of rendering public service, to include the interfacing of staff with elected officials. In that, Mr. Mayor, as you can recall, 2 years ago, when you had responded to my question outlining how the residents of Riverdale Park has benefited under your direction to change to a council manager of form of governments, given my background, I must say I was quite taken back by your response. While I do see improvements in the appearance of the town, I still remain disappointed in the performance of the leadership and members of the council, and what I view as a concerted effort to erode or change good policies and practices just because or without substantiated support or basis. To expand, I implore the leadership, mayor, and council to review the council meetings. This method certainly gave me insight and aided me in providing a high quality level of service to the citizenry while employed by Arlington County. Particularly the June 30th work session, which in my view resulted in a lack of etiquette by council and decisions in ranks. For example, there was mentioned by a CM council member that Councilmember Henry was being condescending and using trickery. In my view, that comment did lack etiquette, and I concur with CM Henry, who has consistently spoke on transparency and raised the question to leadership and council about the number of charter changes taking place, amendments, ordinances, amendments outside of the public setting, where there is no clear basis and tracking is not up to par. This to me is trickery. And I would even add Q bono. As being a longstanding resident of Ward 4, I have seen little to no benefit, and again concur with Councilmember Henry on the negativity from certain wards. This clearly shows the dissension and perhaps why, as a Ward 4 resident, I don't feel connected since the change of governance. It certainly is not due to massive construction as eluded. I conclude by thanking Councilmember Henry for ensuring that all residents are heard and, most importantly, not losing sight of the importance of service. I thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Henry. I agree that it's a good idea to review council meetings. It's one of the reasons that we've been working very hard to get them out and available while you're able to look at them on YouTube. As I mentioned in my report, the special session on the 23rd was also available. Yeah, and I will confess that at the June 30 work session, there were some more than one issues with decorum, and I don't know exactly what to do about that. Perhaps I did my best to ask the two council members involved to stand down, but some did get out before that happened. So I hope we'll do better in the future. And unfortunately, it's difficult through this the virtual medium, as you mentioned, to fully communicate with the council members, and it's a little bit more difficult, having this barrier between us. Then we don't quite feel the need to be as nice when we're not seeing each other face to face. That's one of the issues with electronic communication. You see that in a lot of places. So those that's all I can say. Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional public comments? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Excuse me? Did someone speak? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. It's a single item on there, which are the minutes from various meetings. And can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda items. Item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Mayers. By our rules, we do not debate or discuss this item, so I will therefore move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
Mayor, I support. Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Richardson is still not in attendance. Is that correct? Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 501. Councilmember Henry, you were a little bit garbled. That was an aye. Is that correct?
That is an aye, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So let's move on to legislative action items. Item number 1, a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with Hertrick Fleet Services, Inc. for the lease of 4 police vehicles. This requires a little bit of explanation. Can staff please provide report in advance of the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Unfortunately, the chief had to jump off the meeting. He had to leave. So I will pinch hit for him. In the approved budget, the mayor and council approved the lease or the acquisition of 4 police cruisers through a lease program. That's what was proposed, and that's what is approved. The goal is to acquire the hybrid vehicles. We have been advised that that we may have difficulty in that, depending on production. COVID-19 has impacted manufacturing, so we won't know for a few months whether or not we'll be able to get the hybrids, but that is the goal. In any event, we will need 4 vehicles by the end of the calendar year. We did have 2 vehicles that were involved in accidents in the last year, and the insurance companies totaled those. So we're down cruisers, and the older vehicles that we keep in reserve, the maintenance cost on those continue to increase. We would be asking the mayor and council to, through a motion, authorize the town manager to sign the requisite paperwork to effect these acquisitions through the lease agreement. We have found the lease agreement that we entered 2 years ago to be effective. And as the chief indicates in his memo, we fully anticipate that this cost will stay within the budgeted limit that the mayor and council authorized.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there any questions, or is someone ready to make a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
CM Lingler, are you there before me, or am I there before you?
I think Councilman Henry
Go
was
ahead.
first.
All right.
Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, thank you, CM Lingler. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with Heltridge Fleet Services, Inc. for the lease of 4 police vehicles.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Councilmember Henry and Councilmember Lingua, respectively, to authorize the town manager to enter an agreement with Hertrick Fleet Services for the lease of 4 police vehicles. Is there discussion of this item?
Mr. Mayor, I had a question, if I may.
Yes, please.
As part of what was being pointed out here, in the Ford Credit Municipal Lease Purchase Finance Program, there's one of the provisions saying that no down payment or security deposit required. So essentially, we're leasing these 0 money down. Has there been a cost schedule looked at if we're doing certain monies up front on lease payments and then have lower lease payments in the future, or does it all work out the same in terms of the financing?
Yes, I believe it all works out the same, sir. And
Okay.
our goal right now, more globally, is to hoard cash. So we can take a look and see if anything, we can maybe save a little bit in the first year. Not knowing the effect of COVID on our revenue in the current year, the year that just started. But I do believe that having it spaced out and even payments works. And I know Mr. Smith was involved in the last lease agreement, and that's how we did it then. And I think we're okay doing it this way again.
Okay, thank you.
Are there additional council comments or public comments or questions?
None from me, sir.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Mr. Lingua.
Which repayment terms are we looking at on these? It says here that they're flexible. Was it decided to go with quarterly, semi-annual, annual payment?
I believe that we're doing semi-annual, but I will work that out with Mr. Jones. But it's my understanding we're doing the semi-annual.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional council or public comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Henry,
Aye.
Councilmember Richardson is still absent, is that correct? Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 5-0-1. The next item on our agenda is a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2020-OR-10 regarding CARES Act funding. Is anyone prepared to make that motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for the council to adopt emergency ordinance 2020-OR-10, or in an emergency ordinance which is concerning CARES Act funding.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Mayers. And is there any discussion of the motion?
Briefly, if I may, sir, for a summation.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, this is for the purpose to authorize the town to enter into certain fiscal year 2020-2021 agreement for coronavirus relief funds with Prince George's County in order to accept funds under that agreement from the county government for federal coronavirus relief under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, hence CARES. Essentially, the ordinance authorizes Mr. Lestitian to execute and deliver the agreement on behalf of the town, and essentially generally related to the town receiving federal funds for the effort towards this pandemic.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Are there additional council comments? So I'll just, hearing none, I'll state for the record that the council has discussed for the last few months the spending plan for this. Most of it is going to go for rent and mortgage relief for town residents who are suffering economically under the pandemic. And additional funds will go for providing food relief and food security, again, for town residents who are suffering economically under the pandemic. And we need to get the agreement signed and the money into house so we can start helping out these people. Are there others who wish to speak on this item or ask questions?
Mr. Mayor, just one brief comment here on this item.
Yes, sir.
And so while, you know, and it could very well be my hit on this, but I would ask that the town staff that on items of this magnitude, of this importance, please call me and let me know about these things heads up in front. I do appreciate that I'm now getting phone calls regarding legislative actions and changes regarding the time for our meetings. And so that I'm more aligned with what's occurring in our town. But call me on these items because I would have liked to had some suggestions going into making some recommendations to this item going forward. And you know, that's my piece. Thank you.
Of course, and there is still some flexibility. So if you'd like to discuss with staff, then I suspect we will still have some of this money the next time we meet, and so we can discuss perhaps reallocating. So please reach out to staff or reach out to me over the weeks ahead.
Okay, thank you for that.
Of course. Okay, are there any more council or public comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon?
Aye.
Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Henry?
Mr. Mayor, I hate these types of calls, but I'm going to go with an aye on this one because it's for the betterment of everyone. So I say aye.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Richardson is still not present, is that correct? Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
And I will abstain as usual, and the motion passes 5-0-1. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, motion to adopt ordinance 2020-OR-11 regarding organizational structure of town government. Is someone prepared to make that motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, please.
Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council adopt ordinance 2020-OR-11, an ordinance concerning organizational structure of town government.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
Seconded.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there discussion of the motion?
Brief summation, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
The ordinance is, the adoption is for the purpose of modifying the departments in town government by modifying unclassified positions in the town government and providing for certain severance payments for certain unclassified employees under certain circumstances, and generally relating to the organizational structure of the town government. And you'll be doing so by repealing and reenacting with amendments Chapter 2, Administration, Sections 2-4 and 2-6 of the town's code, January 2008 revision as supplemented.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there additional council or public comments or questions on this item of legislation?
Mr. Mayor, if
Hearing-
there's none, Mr. Mayor, if
Yes.
there's none, if I may speak.
Please do.
Thank you, sir. So on the 2.6 unclassified services, offices, and positions, except for the positions of the town manager and finance director, whose powers, duties, and functions are specified, in the town charter, and prepared by the town manager and approved by the council. I'm noting that on item 2.6, sparing down to item number B, which is the chief of police, who shall be the head of the police department. I don't have an issue on that. Public projects and services director, who shall be the head of the public works department. I don't have an issue with that. On the item number D, are we all on deck? Are you guys all following me? What I'm articulating?
So far,
Are we all following what I'm articulating right
Yes.
now?
we
Okay,
we,
thank you.
we can hear
Yeah.
you fine, and I understand you.
Okay, thank you so much. Just want to make sure. Okay, finance director, who shall be the head of the finance and employee services department. Question here for the town manager. Is this a dual head position? Because it's articulating finance director, who shall be the head of the finance and employee services department. It gives the appearance that there are two roles by one individual here. Am I reading this incorrectly? I guess, Mr. Mayor, a question for the town manager.
Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, sir, and you're reading it correctly, sir. As presented to the council, that position would serve both roles. That's what Mr. Smith has been doing since 2018. He has been serving that dual role. We now have Mr. Jones as a finance manager, which Mr. Jones has taken over a lot of the finance duties now that he has his certified public accountancy accreditation. And if at some point in the future the council would like to split these positions, the council is able to do that. But the way the organization has been functioning is one person oversees both functions.
Okay. And onto thank you for your answer. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Onto item number E on that same lineage going down, Mr. Mayor, if you will.
Mhm.
Developmental Services Director, who shall be the head of the Development Services Department, and Administrative Services Director, who shall be the head of the Administrative Service Department. Is that also one person serving in two functions?
No, sir. Mr. Mayor, is it okay if I reply?
Yes, please do.
No, sir. The Development Services Director is a position that was created in 2018. Ryan currently serves in that role. And that position oversees all the town's development programs, as well as our neighborhood services operation. So our code operation is folded into that as well. The administrator, go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Don't let me interrupt you. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
And the administrative services position is Ms. Barnes's position as town clerk, where she serves as town clerk, but it's more accurately to describe her as the director of administrative services. She has staff that support all the operations across the town. Her position supports administratively every office and department.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may
Yes, please.
continue on, sir. Thank you. So it confuses me when it says Developmental Services Director, who shall be the head of the Department Services Department, and when you put that word in there, and Administrative Services Director, that tells me that there's a correlation between the Developmental Services Director and the Administrative Service Director. Who shall be the head of the Administrative Service Department? I'm confused by the literature and the articulation within that body of language right there. I think I hear what you're saying, TM, but I think it needs to be more delineated and identified specifically that these are two separate positions. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you tonight, or am I not?
May I answer, Mr. Lustician?
Please,
So the labeling of those sections A, B, C, D, E, F, and the separation of the first 5 from each other by the all of them at the end by the semicolons, and I believe that the "and" is in there simply because it's approaching the end of the list. So there's a long list: the town manager, chief of police, public projects and services director, finance director, development services director, and administrative services director. So it's just that there are in fact 6 in a list, and generally as you get to the end of the list, you put an "and" before the last one. However, if you think it would be clearer, then the "and" could be struck, and I don't think it would change the legal validity of the language.
Thank you for that. I'm just being I'm being a pessimist here, if you will, and I'm not. But I'm just saying the "and" brings about a confusional factor in my mind, and this is just me speaking. But I understand what you're saying completely in your articulation, where the "and" is just the end of that F, the end of the paragraph. I hear that, but I think it could cause some confusion, and if it can be removed and defined as just departments of services, period, or something else that more delineates more definitive articulation, I think that would be more clearer for us. Mr. Mayor, if I may continue, if that's okay with you.
Certainly.
Thank you. Any persons who holds a position identified in subsection B through F of this section and whose employment is terminated without cause shall be terminated for a severance payment equal 4 months salary calculated. And I'm going to stop right there, because that concerns me, because that could be a substantial amount of money when we have one person encompassing 2 positions here. And so we're looking at not just 2 months, not just 4 months, but 8 months when a person has 2 positions. So I'm concerned about that. And I don't know how we would revise that language, but we're a small town, and I want to look out for the interests of our town, and I don't want us to fall into a deficit because circumstances prevailed, and now we're in we're in a situation where we have to compensate employees because of what was stipulated in our ordinance, and so I'm concerned about that. I think that language needs to be revised, particularly since we have positions here that are split, that are dual heads here, and actually receiving two types of salaries. I'm concerned about that because I've looked at the budget, and one of the reasons why I never attend the budget meetings is because I didn't agree with it because of these issues. So I want to put that out there for your consideration and thought going forward, just as a matter of identifying that those issues are concerning to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. May I answer your concern with that clause?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. The clause, I'm going to take out some of the descriptive language in there and just read through a simplified version of it. It says, any person who holds a position identified in subsections, et cetera, shall be eligible for a severance payment equal to 4 months' salary. So it says nothing about them holding two positions. And in fact, in the current structure of town government, then each of these positions is held by a single person. And so,
You're reading my thought correctly. You are reading my thought correctly. I thank you for that.
So even if, for instance, the finance director and the town manager were the same person, that wouldn't be a good idea. But if that occurred, then the person who had that job would hold a position identified in those subsections. And if they were terminated, they would be eligible for 4 months of their pay. And so it would not be the 8 months, but it would be 4. And it's as usual with legal language, then the subsidiary clauses make it a little bit confusing, but I'm quite confident that that's the correct reading of this section.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. So in other words, whether you have one title or two titles, it would also amount to the same amount of severance pay.
Exactly, which would be 4 months.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember, for carefully reading this and bringing your concerns. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Are
sir.
there additional council comments or questions on this legislation? Councilman Henry, did you want to propose an amendment to 2.6 E? Or
Absolutely.
this one?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
What amendment would you like to propose?
So I would like to propose the amendment to where it stipulates that on your indulgence, on page number 3, for 4 months' salary calculated at the employee's final rate of pay, I would like to stipulate that we change that to say that whether the salary for 4 months be calculated at the positions, whether it be a dual position or a single position, that it would be calculated at a 4 months calculated salary.
I believe it already says that, Councilman. So do you have specific language that you would like to remove or add that you can specify the line numbers and exactly which words?
Stand by. Yes, sir. So any person who holds a position identified in subsection B through F of this section and whose employment is terminated without cause shall be eligible for severance pay equal to 4 months. I want to edit on their 4 months salary in the positions calculated at the employee's final rate of pay. In the positions. So I think that captures whether it be a finance director or a project and service director coupled into one. My idea here, Mr. Mayor, is to capture if there are dual responsibilities into a position, that there isn't a dual payout into the responsibilities. That's the capture.
Okay, there's a motion to insert the language in the positions between calculated and at line 89. Is that correct, Councilman Henry?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Is there a second to the motion?
Are you kidding me?
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilman Henry, seconded by Councilmember Lingua.
I think,
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I think Councilmember Mayer may have beat me to that.
Councilmember Mayers, did you second the motion, or did Councilmember Lingua second the
Was
motion?
that Councilmember Dixon?
I think I did. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think she's ahead of me, sir.
Okay, motion was made by Councilmember Henry and seconded by Councilmember Mayers. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, discussion of the motion.
What is the replacement again on line 89?
It's to insert in the positions between the words calculated and at in line 89.
Okay, thank you.
Can you read it, how it would read
I'm
out
happy
into-
to read the whole thing. Any person who holds a position identified in subsections B through F of this section and whose employment is terminated without cause shall be eligible for a severance payment equal to 4 months' salary calculated in the positions at the employee's final rate of pay.
Calculated in the position?
That's correct. Can I make an alternate
I don't
suggestion?
think that makes, yes, I'm open to that. 'Cause that seems to be a bit more confusing.
I would suggest that in line 86, you could change that text to read, any person who holds any position or positions identified in subsections, et cetera, and that way it takes into account that a person may hold multiple. I think that the 4 months is the amount, 4 months of their pay is the amount is clear. And so I think that would clarify that they could hold multiple positions and they still receive 4 months of their salary as it was on their last paycheck.
Or you could just put
Councilman-
an S in parenthetical next to the word position.
Yes, that's an even simpler amendment. Councilmember Henry, do you have a thought on that?
The only thought I would have, Mr. Mayor, is if there's any apprehension from the board, members of council, is that we push this to our legal team to have them review this and give us their insight on a further direction. That would be my only forthgoing. But as far as your language interpretation and your insertion to the line item 86, I don't have any concerns about that. But if we want to be legally astute, then maybe we just ought to just pump our brakes and just have this looked at our legal team if we have any apprehension from the bias.
Okay, well, I honestly believe this is a fairly simple fix. The other option for line 86 would be who holds a position or positions. It's another way to put that. I'm always a little nervous about the parentheses after a word like that. So, council, what are your thoughts on this? Any additional comments or questions?
I'm prepared to go forward in this and move favorable on it with the changes that we've made. I think it articulates.
Well, at the moment, we have your original amendment on the floor. And so if we were to go with Councilmember Dixon's suggestion, we would have to jump through a few procedural hoops before we can adopt it. And so I need to know the direction that the council is inclined to go, and I can move directions forward. Councilmember Dixon, you had some concerns about Councilmember Henry's language. Do you?
Yes, I mean, are we going to vote on his proposed language and then I propose something else? I mean, procedurally, how do you want to? I made the suggestion. Quite frankly, I think it's fine the way it is, but I think his, I guess, friendly motion, whatever it is still on the floor.
Yes, his motion is on the floor, so he could withdraw the motion without prejudice. He could bring it back up again if it came to that. And someone else could make a motion for a different amendment after he withdrew it, or we could vote on his amendment. And if it passed, then it passed. If it failed, then it could be, the clause could be amended by a second separate motion. So there are several options. So basically, my thought is to get the direction the council would like to go, and I will make recommendations on how to move forward expeditiously.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may speak to the council member.
Mm-hmm.
That is, so CM Dixon. So what I'm doing here, what I'm emphasizing on is not precariously getting us down the road in having one person being compensated for two roles at the same time. If the council in the future decides that this person's position no longer is required, and that's what I'm aiming to propose tonight, to protect us from that. We don't have to be procuring expenditures for one person getting two salaries for 8 months. That's in essence what I'm proposing.
And I believe that any of the proposed language changes can get to that end. It's just a question of which is the clearest. So does council have thoughts on that? Which is the best language to move forward?
I liked your suggestion, Mr. Mayor, of was it line 86, position or positions.
Okay.
Is that what you suggested?
That was my last suggestion, yes.
It just seems like the appropriate place for the switch to accomplish that task. It just seems easier there.
Okay.
In mind.
That would work
I
for
just think
me as well.
It overcomplicates, you know, when you're drafting language, sometimes when you overcomplicate it by thinking that you're overcompensating for a potential misread, you make the language more complicated than it needs to be. So I don't think that, you know, position or positions is going to question what that means. Why position or positions? Then why can't I get it for both? It just says position. If we have someone as there with two titles, if it's one position and they're getting paid one salary for whatever titles they have, then that's what they would get paid out for. It's not like if they were getting two different salaries, then for two different positions, then yes, they would get, you know, maybe they'd get severance with both. but it doesn't matter how many positions they hold. It matters what their salary is. That's what they're getting paid out of. So by adding words, you could overcomplicate something that's not really the issue. The issue is, how is their severance calculated? 4 months of what their salary is, independent of if they have 6 positions, you have 1 salary.
Okay, so
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman-
Mr. Mayor, if I may please respond to the narrative of the CM.
you may of course respond. We are.
Yes, sir. I'll keep it very, very brief. And so CM Dixon, I want to respond to your narrative here, and I want to take you back to 2 years ago when we were in discussion regarding the budgetary meeting, and identified that we had one person that was sharing 2 salaries and gaining 2 salaries off of those 2 different separate positions. So to your point that this individual is capturing 2 salaries off of 2 different titles. And that's the issue that I have, and that's the reason why I'm bringing this point up. It's not because I'm overshadowing that, one person can have 2 titles. We all know that, we have several titles today, but we have 1 function. But, we're not being paid for the different functions that we have. In this scenario, this individual is being paid 2 different salaries. That's the point. And that's my issue in bringing this up to the forefront. I yield, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman.
The way I'm reading it in the budget that we passed, the way this position is set up, is that it essentially is a single person, is that as part of their tasks, is that they spend a portion of their time dealing with finance items and another portion of their time dealing with human resource issues. Yes, their total pay is divided up into 2 different parts of the budget. Yet what I'm seeing here is that it's listed as a single position that has dual roles underneath it, under that 1 position. And that essentially still amounts to a single salary. And that's what we have in the budget, and that's what we've approved. So in a sense, we've already approved this role and are acknowledging that it's essentially a single salary.
Okay. So I have not heard an additional motion. There's been a lot of discussion. So according to the rules of order, we either need a motion or we need to vote on this motion to amend. So unless someone wants to make an amendment at this time to the existing motion, then we need to vote.
Mr. Mayor, point of clarification, could the motion, the amended motion be repeated?
Yes, and I hope that Councilmember Henry will correct me because there's one question that I had about the language. So it is to insert the words on line 89 between calculated and at, insert the words in the positions. Is it positions or position, Councilman Henry?
Sir, that will be in the positions.
Okay. So that is the language of the motion that is on the floor, was duly seconded, and that we've been discussing.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I don't think that that is so of a tactical or a difficult decision to render. It's a matter of protective basis for our town. That's what it's all about. It's not about me or you. It's about our town. And I want to make sure that our town is protected in the best interests of it. You know, whether we have our differences or not. It's about what's doing the best thing for our town. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah.
Okay, if we not hear a motion to amend, then I'm going to call a roll call vote. Let's go ahead and start with Councilmember Dixon.
Nay.
Councilmember Foe.
Nay.
Councilmember Lingua.
Nay.
Councilmember Henry.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Councilmember Richardson is not present, is that correct? Councilmember Mayers?
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. What are we voting on?
We are voting on the amendment to insert the words in the positions between the words calculated and at on line 89 of ordinance 2020-OR-11 as presented to the council.
As far as the rules, can the person who presents a motion abstain? Does that in and of itself relinquish the motion as being withdrawn?
It does not, to my knowledge. If you would like, I can consult the rules of order. I'm essentially certain.
In the interest of time, it's fine. We can proceed.
Thank you. Councilmember Mayers, do you vote aye or nay or abstain?
Nay.
I abstain. The motion passes, fails 4-0-2. 0-4-2. Are there additional amendments or discussion of the main motion? We're back to the main motion. Hearing none, I'm going to call a vote on the main motion. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
Nay.
Councilmember Richardson is also not present, still not present. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-1-1. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. If you can hold on for just a moment. Oh, there's the agenda up on the screen. Motion to adopt ordinance 2020-OR-12 regarding the town personnel manual. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, a motion was made. Is there discussion of the motion to adopt ordinance 2020-OR-12 regarding the town personnel manual?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance concerning the amending of sections definitions A-3, E-2, subsection A, H-1, H-2, Article 1, Section 1(1)(e), Section K-1, K-7, L-1, and L-4 of the Town of Riverdale Park Personal Manual to discuss certain items, prohibit certain contracts of employment, alter the authority and procedures for certain performance assessments and discipline, alter certain provisions relating to voluntary departures from town employment, and generally relate to the Town Personnel Manual.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there further discussion of this agenda item? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I'm going to call the motion. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
Mayor, I abstain.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Richardson is still absent. Is that correct? Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
I abstain. The motion passes 402. That brings us to the end of our legislative action items and to unfinished business. The item is the International Property Maintenance Code, which we've been discussing for many months. Is there a staff discussion on this?
Yes, after the mayor and council proposed some questions at the last council meeting about the definition of weeds, I met with the Office of Neighborhood Services and mentioned that we had this discussion. Their suggestion was just to remove the word weeds entirely from the definition of sanitation, because the current town code, chapter 68, already defines weeds and rubbish. And if this was going to cause confusion in the future, it was better just to leave it removed from this section and rely entirely on chapter 68 to define weeds and how we are going to rule them.
Okay, thank you. Is there council discussion of the International Property Maintenance Code as discussed under unfinished business?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Lingua.
Under section 3, the part section 302.1 sanitation, in bold, it's written, and I was hoping staff could give a definition as to what is meant here. When it says the open storage on residential property of dead trees, how does one openly store a dead tree? And how is that differentiating from, say, firewood?
Well, if they're looking to store firewood on their property, they would need to be following the rules outlined in section 302.10 under firewood, meaning that they would need to have neatly stacked rows at least 18 inches above the ground.
Okay.
But
it's not firewood a dead tree?
It is a dead tree, but the storage of that dead tree is very important in how we are going to store that dead tree. We are not going to just allow the tree to remain dead on the property and to harbor rodents and other undesirable things that might damage neighbors' properties or the property itself.
So essentially what you're referring to is standing or fallen dead trees.
That's right.
Is that correct? Okay. And essentially in the sense that the tree is still in a continuous length?
That's right, yes. Yes, it would need to be chopped up and stored properly.
Yeah, I think probably, well, as a suggestion, here elsewhere, that's kind of clarified and defined out. Essentially, that's what's getting, that's what's being meant here.
Absolutely, we can make that much more clear.
Yeah, granted, firewood is like 18 inches in a 18 inches above ground. I think probably, when you're saying in 3210 about fire shall be cut in length for final use and neatly stacked at least. Okay. Granted, there's a narrowing of use when you're saying stove or fireplace, in the sense that what's being deemed a fireplace. If someone has are we talking interior? Are we talking about exterior? Someone has set up a, say, 8 by 8 foot by 8 foot somewhat subterranean fire pit, essentially constructed out of stone and cinder. Essentially a prepared space to burn wood for a type of fire, for a fireplace outside. Of which at one point they could, over a portion of it, place a grill and grill food. You could be able to put pieces in there that were 24, 36 inches in length, and a diameter of really kind of whatever size, depending on how big the fire gets.
Are you suggesting that we should define in the firewood section the appropriate lengths and widths for which the wood is
Well,
cut
I think probably if we, or something where probably it'd be good to do is, look, I guess it's a matter of like just looking through and the international code is essentially outdoor, outdoor use of firewood for any type of outdoor use of grills, fire pits, or of the like, so that it's something that's set up, so that then it's delineated, setback from property lines, houses, other existing structures, so on and so forth. And again, also, it's going to be probably it's going to get really interesting when you're talking about corner properties as well. Because right here, when I'm seeing stove and fireplace, to me, it seems to be suggesting an indoor use.
That's a very good point. And we, I guess, we need to certainly do a better job of clarifying that. We can revise the language here and bring it back to mayor and council at another meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, but in terms of 3201, I think just that clarification on dead trees, I think would be helpful. Otherwise, I think it's fairly straightforward.
Absolutely, and thank you for making those points.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, council member.
Sir, did we skip over item number 4 on the legislative action, the motion to adopt ordinance 2020 OR 12 regarding town personnel manual?
No, sir, we did not. The motion was made by Councilmember Foe and seconded by Councilmember Lingua, and there was a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and yourself and myself abstaining. So it passed 4-0-2.
My apologies, sir. If I can just bring just some point of notions back to that point, that we have some insertions in there that says the town administrator. I think it should be changed to the town manager.
Council member,
sir.
I appreciate that there are some issues that you wanted to discuss, but the motion has already been adopted. And in order to consider amendments to it at this time, we would have to go through a special procedure, which is known as a motion to reconsider something already adopted at the meeting. And a motion to reconsider has to be made by one of those voting in favor of the passing of the legislation. And since you did not vote, voting by a person who was on the prevailing side. And so neither yourself nor myself would be able to make such a motion against ordinance 2020-OR-12. And I will honestly. Okay.
Understand that, Mayor. Understand that. But and given the factors and what you're laying out for me, I just want to point out that where it says town administrator, it should be changed to town manager. That's all I wanted to point out. That's all I wanted to say.
I presume that will come up at some future meeting since we
Yes.
can't.
Yes.
Can't
Just wanted to
consent
point
this
it out. That's all I wanted to point out. Not to
Okay.
make any waves or any disturbances here. I just want to point that out that needs to be corrected. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Are there any more discussion under the International Property Maintenance Code? Okay, let's move on to new business. Are there any items of new business? Hearing none, usually we have old business there. I neglected to notice that in the draft agenda. So we're not going to consider old business unless someone wants to make a motion under new business that might consider something old. And so we will move on to adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
For a second, made by Councilmember Henry, seconded by Councilmember Foe. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry.
Aye.
Councilmember Richardson is still absent. Is that correct? Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
I abstain. We are adjourned at 8:52 p.m. Thank you all. And I'll see you in September. We might have a special somewhere between now and then, but enjoy the recess.
Good night,
Well then.
all. Stay
Thank you,
safe.
Mayor and
Good night,
Council.
all.
Good night.
Safe, y'all.
Good evening.